Good afternoon. We're gathered here to conduct an IEP meeting for Douglas Deal, who is in the 7th grade here at Macy. Today, the purpose of our meeting is to share the results of our testing and also to determine the eligibility for Douglas. We'd like to begin by introducing ourselves. My name is Deborah de la Torre, and I'm the principal at Macy Intermediate. And we'd like to begin by going around the room. If you could please introduce yourself.
I'm Ellen Deal, Doug's mom.
I'm Lou Lawrence. I'm the RSP teacher.
Valentina Montes, the school psychologist.
I'm Leslie Ziff, and I'm the collaborative teacher.
And I'm Carolyn Marquez. I'm the teacher that is referring Doug to this situation.
And I'm Douglas Deal.
Carol Zahner, speech and language specialist.
Thank you for coming today. We'd like to begin by having Ms. Viramontes talk about the testing that she has done on Douglas.
Just to capsulize, he shows visual processing deficits. He has equal strengths and weaknesses in the auditory area, and his sensory motor skills are age appropriate.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Mrs. Deal, so far?
No, I think she explained it rather well.
Okay. Next, we'd like to have Mr. Lawrence explain the testing that he has done on Douglas.
Just like Ms. Viramontes, Doug was quite easy to get a rapport with. He had several questions before we started about why we were going to do the test, and as we went through some of the tests, he questioned some of the questions in the test, which I thought was quite interesting. The first test I gave was the wide range achievement test, and which tests 3 areas. And one is the reading area, recognition. The other is spelling, and the last one is math. As far as standard scores, he scored in the math area. He scored at a 64, and the spelling was a 64, and the reading was a 54.
And I would like to add that these scores are representative of the work that Douglas does in class, that his math skills are higher, but he does have trouble with reading comprehension, as he said, for the 60th percentile. I also want to concur with your results of Douglas and his pleasant attitude and his critical thinking. He has a very nice way with adults. He's very cooperative. And I'm sure that in the new placement that he'll do a good job because he has a very willing attitude, and I do appreciate that.
Last time we met in student study team, Ms. Marcus had concern about Douglas with regards to maybe some speech services. And so we asked our speech and language therapist, Ms. Zahner, to test him, and so she'll be sharing the results with us right now.
I know the area was in speech and how he pronounces some of the sounds, but I also need to look at his language and his language development. And language development, as Ms. Viramontes said, he loves to talk and he does very well in all areas.
Good talk.
Yes,
grammar and pragmatics, the social use of language, his vocabulary. We performed a screening that we have with most children his age, and out of 36 questions, he had 33. He does very well. His auditory memory is good. His hearing, he's passed, and there's been no history of ear infections. His discrimination task to hear the difference between sounds is within normal development. But when I gave a test to Doug to how he pronounces certain words, he has difficulties with R, SH, and CH, and the final R, which is a sound. This is not typical. Usually children by his age, at least by the age of 8, have all these sounds in their repertoire, and he doesn't. Therefore, because he has more than one sound and he is older than 8, he qualifies for speech and language services. And these areas need to be addressed. It's not due to any lack of hearing or discrimination ability or language, but it's just a developmental sound. And Doug happened to mention that kids tend to tease him sometimes, and he's noticed it, and he would like to do something
fix
about the
this.
speech. Yeah.
Now that we've discussed the testing results, we need to determine eligibility. So I'll let Ms. Viramontes explain what Douglas is eligible for.
Based on the test results, he does qualify as a learning disabled student. He shows that he has ability in the average to high average range. He shows that he has visual processing deficits and auditory processing deficits. He also shows a discrepancy or a difference between his ability and his academics, according to Mr. Lawrence's testing. So he qualifies in the areas of reading comprehension, and mathematics.
He also qualifies for designated instructional service in speech and language due to articulation errors.
Okay. Since Douglas does qualify for special services from our RSP teacher, we need to talk about his placement. As you know, Douglas is in a what we call traditional setting in 7th grade. Next year, he will be going into the 8th grade, and we have a setting available that we think will be very valuable for Douglas. Mrs. Ziff is here. She teaches in our collaboration team, and what that means is that our RSP teacher works with Mrs. Ziff inside the classroom. Douglas would not be pulled out of his classroom. Mr. Lawrence would work and does work in team with Mrs. Ziff and will help her modify any of the lessons that he will be receiving within her class. And he also qualifies for services from Ms. Sainer.
Yeah. Are you going to pull him out for...
I think we talked about this, that it would probably initially be better for pull-out, especially when we were looking at developing the sounds, at least in isolation and at the word level. As we move into conversation, I think as he begins to use these sounds on a more regular basis, that we can begin to do it within the classroom setting. Okay. When you do some reading aloud or answering or asking questions in class. And you and your teacher can pick a time when you're willing to work on your speech in that way. She'll help you to remember.
Okay, and you'll get back to me on that.
Yeah. I think for right now we'll just look at individual therapy.
All right.
Now, we've talked about Douglas's placement for next year, and we've talked about what we can do for him in a general way. Part of this process is planning goals for Douglas, and we need to articulate the goals to you to see if you're in agreement. Mr. Lawrence and Mrs. Ziff have been working together to establish these goals, so we'd like to share those at this time.
In the area of reading, one of the areas would be really focusing in on sight word vocabulary. Also on the reading comprehension, initially, whether he's reading or we're reading, we're going to really pursue the recall. So what he's heard, he can give back to you. Another area is oral reading. We're in the process of developing our program where the children each read 15 minutes every other day. And they'll go to the computer station, they'll read, and they'll punch it in so they get credit for that day. So now, if we get a couple volunteers, maybe we can make it every day. But right now it's every other day, so 15 minutes of oral reading. In the area of math, we're going to go back and work a little bit on just vocabulary of math. So again, it's the vocabulary and the sight words.
Right.
And then the operations, we're going to work beefing up his addition and subtraction facts and carrying, and then also start focusing in on the multiplication tables. And those are the areas that we're going to really focus in on.
Good.
There's one other area. And that's the social adaptation. Douglas works very well with adults.
Yeah,
I think he is an adult.
He's a little man.
But we're going to focus in on getting him to get in with some. Yeah. And then one of the nice things about the collaboration model is that the configuration of the room, he's set at tables of 4 or 6. So he's automatically included in that group cluster to start with. So we'll start in the room itself.
Why has it taken this long till he hits 7th grade and 13 years old that we're now getting him into
And sometimes, and that's a good question, sometimes teachers are not sure if they haven't had enough experience with him, or they may have referred him before, and we have tried to give interventions or suggest interventions to the teachers to help them along. There's sometimes various reasons for that. Sometimes it is if it's not caught and it's not brought to our attention as a student study team, we can't address the need. What we need to share with parents is that at any time, if they feel that there is a concern, that they should come to us and communicate that to us so that we can work also with them in starting to investigate whether or not the child might need services.
Right. The teachers wouldn't have any problem if you come in and observe class or see what's going on.
Not at all. We welcome that. We wish more parents would come in and
I'd like
see
to
the
see.
situation. Right.
Douglas, do you have any questions before we dismiss this group?
Yeah. What type of other kids would I be working with? Kids that read higher or the same as I do?
Why don't I let Mrs. Ziff answer that question for you?
Douglas, you're going to be coming into a group of people that are a whole mix. There's going to be people that are the same as you, and there will be people that are a little bit higher and a little bit lower. So it's going to be kind of a big, group of all different abilities. And you're all going to be working together at sometimes, and sometimes you'll be working separately and in smaller groups.
I think the IEP went fairly well. If it's indication of being normal, I think would be that the parent is here and she's asking questions. Usually we will have questions from parents because sometimes the process isn't very familiar to them. And a lot of times we're using language, school language, that parents don't understand. So we like for our parents to ask questions when possible so that we can explain if it's not entirely clear to them. Generally, we have the full participation of the IE team. This is what we want because we want to make sure that the parent knows where the child's going to be serviced and who is going to be servicing the child. Occasionally, we have a parent who comes in and has really pursued this help for their child, and they're not always convinced that we're doing enough for them. We have annual IEPs that take place after initial IEP, and sometimes if parents don't feel that we're doing enough for them, they will bring in an advocate. And at that time, they will have questions for us and ensuring that their child will be getting all the services that they desire. And sometimes we have to have discussions and even debates over what will take place for the child. Today, I think, though, would be an average IEP. Generally, our parents just want to know what's going on and be assured that we will work with them if there are any questions later on.
My contribution to the IEP process is that I am the school psychologist and I do the assessments for the students that are referred for a psychological assessment. And basically what I do is I test in the area of the intelligence or cognitive processes, and I also test in the area of processing information, whether it's visually, auditorily, or in the sensory motor area.
One of the first things I did with Doug was to check his hearing, to know that that was within normal limits. I did an oral peripheral examination to know that the structure and the function, and that was all within normal limits. Then I went to a articulation test where it looks at the sounds. Doug does not have a processing deficit where he's changing the rules of different sounds, but he really has trouble with manner and place, where he's putting his articulators, his tongue and his teeth, to produce certain sounds. That's R, SH, and CH. So articulation, which was the primary reason for referral, yes, he does have an articulation disorder.
The inclusion model will be much better for Douglas because he will have a wide range of abilities within the classroom. As you could see by this IEP, he was really worried about if the kids would be smarter than he was or if he would be included, whereas he'll have children of higher level and lower level that he can interact with, and I'm sure this will help him socially.
because right now in my class, he is by himself. He clings on to me. I am his rock of Gibraltar, and he needs to feel a part of the class, and hopefully in this new setting he will.
My role in the collaboration is to allow my RSP children to feel comfortable in the regular class setting, benefit from all the levels that are in that classroom, whether it be gifted or regular.
I'm going to be working on his pronunciation, and because we're going to be doing a lot of drama and other things within the history classroom that he'll be with me for that part of the time, we're going to be working on some of his expression and the way that he pronounces his words, along with the reading and his reading techniques.
It's nice because not only are they almost like family, some of them, but they also help you out a lot for your reading. And if I'll stand up in class and something and try to read, they'll help me out. Like if I can't pronounce something, they'll help me. So it's nice.
Janice, we want them to be able to do Unit 3 in their Quest 2000 books, which deals with operations. And we know they know addition because we've already covered that, but they need subtraction, and we're having some difficulty with some individuals with subtraction.
So what we need to do is to go back to subtraction and teach the whole unit and start like doing a task analysis. Start from where they can all begin and then take it as far as we can go. If I think what we want to do is make sure that all the kids can regroup with 2-digit numbers. If they can do that, then we'll stop and go on.
Well, we started with the money, but then when it got more difficult with the takeaway and transferring over the numbers and changing them, we lost several of the students. So, and they weren't always the RSP ones. So with the continue with the subtraction, what do you want to do?
Let's go back to money and let's teach them how to regroup using the money. And then that will be our motivation. We'll get them to be comfortable with the money. And then we'll go into our goal is to teach regrouping and then to go back into inverse addition to make sure they can check their work.
Okay, that would be good because then that'll also reinforce addition again.
And then if we have a few students that really can't master the skill, we will pull them out separately and work with them at where they're at.
And then the ones that are mastering it, we can continue with more difficult borrowing and longer 3-digit. Because right now we're just going to do 2-digit.
And then using zeros.
Yeah.
Teaching zeros would be for the kids that need to move on faster. So that's our plan, and we'll go day by day with it. I think after that, then we can work on multiplication and start with the same thing, because in the book, we need to have, they have to have a good mastery of multiplication even before they hit this book.
The book you have here?
Yeah.
Are we going to use that one, or?
We can for enrichment. Okay. Can go back for the higher level kids because we want to meet the needs of all the kids in the classroom, and we want everyone to be able to function at their best ability, including the really high group that we have.
So they don't get bored.
Right.
One of the things that's important in collaboration is that for the special ed teacher, they're actually combining forces with the general ed teacher. So they're going into their room. And it's not easy to share turf. And so I think for the special ed teacher, it's important to recognize that you'll be working alongside that general ed teacher, and that the general ed teacher is the content specialist. They know a lot about 4th grade content and 6th grade content. And the special ed teacher is an expert on curricular adaptations, alternative assessment, and other instructional design and management design that's very important. They have an incredible amount of bottled up expertise to share with that general ed teacher. So the two individuals working together, it's just a match made in heaven. And I think the first thing that you really want to think about when you're collaborating is find a teacher you get along with. It's very, very simple. And then find a grade level or a subject area you feel very comfortable with. Develop that relationship, strengthen that relationship, plan and coordinate your services, and so that the choreography of working together is a little bit easier.
What I need to do is to help you and support your program. So as we're going through this, please let me know how I can support any of the children that are in this group, and let me know what your needs are. That's really vital. If you feel that a particular student isn't mastering the skill, then I'll pull them out and work with them individually.
I can show you also their papers and keep an eye on their scores, because you don't always see their homework when they come in, or the other scores that come in from other papers. So I can show you the roll book, or pull out the papers, and like I have in the past, pulled out the papers and put them on your desk with a note. Look at these papers. Do you see a pattern? And find out what the weakness is, and then focus on that.
Also, if anybody that's not in special ed needs to be supported, we can do that too. Because in a collaboration model, that's the purpose. The purpose is to make sure that everybody gets their needs met one way or the other. Because I know that there is one general ed student that's having difficulty with subtraction. And we've been working with him too as part of the total group. So that's really important, that the children are not labeled by their label, but that they are all serviced according to what their needs are.
And we need to use the ones, the tens, and the hundreds. So go ahead and get those dollar bills out. And one without borrowing first. And the first problem we're going to do is 99 minus 77. So, somebody tell me what they're going to be taking out and counting. Alan?
9 tens and 9 ones.
Once you have your ones and your tens out that Alan just told us, and you want to continue on and subtract the 77. Okay, what's next up?
Do I get 9 of these and 10 of these or no?
Remember to put your ones. Remember what Alan just said. 9 ones and 9 tens. Okay? For the RSP students, they have the opportunity of not being taken out and placing a label on them. They need to go to a special room to read. They need to go to a special room to learn. Robert, you want to help them out? Okay, you're taking 8 from 13. You said take away 13 from 8. Okay, and then if you did this correctly in front of you, you should have in front of you gold, and this is your 10. So counting in front of you, Mark, did you come up with 55? And that's what you have in front of you. Okay. There's a great fear of having somebody else in your classroom to help you, and you don't really have an independent classroom anymore, but it's two people in one class that are credentialed that can assist, and of course we all know that 2 is better than 1, and in this case it is definitely positive. And I tell them it's not easy, and I mean that's the truth, but I think we need to look at what's better for the student.
If she's going to say take away how many, what do you think you're going to have to do? Let's predict. Let's take a guess. I think you're going to have to borrow, right? So you're making an estimation. What if I said take away 10? Could you take away 10 from that stack? You couldn't?
You subtract 4, 5, 6, 7, and you get rid of those. Okay. We had mentioned it earlier that when we plan, we start with maybe what I want to do, and then Janice and I will figure out what needs to be done to accommodate the whole group, and, well, what if not, if everybody understands, then what's the next step? Or, well, the higher kids might understand that, but we don't want to exclude them from, achieving higher. So it's a challenge to figure out what we need to do, because we need to accommodate both ends of the spectrum and the learning. We're going to start a lot of shuffling, so you really need to make sure you're nice and neat, you're nice and organized with everything. So if we're going on to a third column, we've already done the ones, we've done the tens. Somebody tell me what the next column's going to be, Denise. Hundreds.
There is no question that the child's self-esteem remains more intact in a collaboration model or inclusion. They're part of the group. They're not labeled. They feel success. Compared to a pull-out program, with a pull-out program, the children are walking back and forth. They're getting into trouble as they walk back and forth. They're not a part of one group. They're not a part of the other group. And although you can build self-esteem with a pull-out program, it's not the same effect. The children, they go back to their class, and the children say, well, where were you? I was in pull-out program. And it's different when you have to say, oh, I went to the resource program. Collaboration is a much better way of handling children's psyche and how they feel about themselves.
I think collaboration works on many different levels. I've seen it work for teachers. They do not feel isolated. They don't feel alone. They're part of a team. They're sharing. Teaching can be isolating, but in the collaboration model, it seems to have really helped. I've seen veteran teachers work with new teachers. It's been a beautiful relationship. And I think you saw one of the classrooms. I think one of the levels it works for me is just visually. When I walk into a classroom and I can't tell the difference, and I don't know there's a difference, that's powerful for the children. They don't see the difference then. They don't know that, oh, I'm at special ed, I'm not supposed to be doing this. So at many levels it works. Again, you have to have that buy-in from the teachers and from the school community.
In our classroom, when they don't understand something, they have to independently realize, I don't understand this, I need to stand up and I need to go on to the other side of the room, like we did with similar what we do with the math. So it makes them very independent, and they need to realize they need help. And there's nothing wrong with that, because everybody has a weakness, and we're only trying to make them catch up.
Janice and Lorraine are working together on a mathematics assignment, and what I like about that whole situation is that they started the kids off on a task that they knew that they could do. They adjusted the complexity and the difficulty of that task and then built on success. The kids that really needed more specific skill building, Janice then took them aside to work on those issues and concerns.
What I want you to do, follow me. I'm going to write the problem on the board. Okay, what I want you to do is to copy the problem down.
Janice is working on regrouping, actually, in the tens column to help the students understand that rather difficult concept. So it's probably the kids have been passed through the grades, not really understanding that concept. So she was doing a little bit of what we call drill and practice. And if you'll notice that drill and practice, when it's done well, can relax kids because they can actually feel comfortable with that. Now, I think that when you overdo drill and practice, it can be also very, very tedious and boring for children. But in this situation, you notice that the kids could breathe a sigh of relief, and then when they could go back into the classroom where they had to do more advanced problem solving, cooperative groups where they had to be part of the team, they could feel more secure and more competent and confident.
Okay. Now, don't do the problem yet, but I want to talk about the problem. Look, which numbers are in the ones column, Jenny?
The 3.
The 3 and what other number?
6.
The 3 and the 6. And then what numbers are in the tens column?
5 and the 1.
Okay. So, in dealing with the 3 and the 6, I have 3 fingers. Can I take 6 fingers away from my 3 fingers? No. So what does that answer tell you?
That we have to borrow from the 5.
That you have to borrow from the 5. Show me how you borrow from the 5. Okay? Show me how you borrow, Crystal. And, you not only you borrowed and you took away. Good, Robert. Then go ahead and subtract. Brian. Good. Use your fingers if you have to. This is my 5th year of working in a collaboration model classroom. And I've seen 2 groups graduate, and this is the 3rd group, in a 2-year program with each one. And I've seen it from the point of being a general education teacher and now from being an RSP teacher. And since my position last year with seeing RSP, from the RSP point of view and the pull-out versus collaboration, I have no doubt in my mind that collaboration is really much more effective for children and much better way of educating all children rather than just a pull-out program.
Number 1, planning is the key to success in collaboration. 2, time should be available on a regular basis for teachers to discuss instruction and instructional adaptations. 3, it's best for teachers to write down their instructional plans and curriculum modifications. 4, a brief discussion of how co-teaching will occur assists the flow of teaching. 5, debriefing on a scheduled basis helps both teachers improve instruction. Now let's look at a case study of students with behavioral problems and see how a team of professionals come together to find positive solutions. Ricky suffers from mild to moderate cognitive delay, as well as adaptive skill and language delays.
I don't want to eliminate any behavior in Ricky. All I want to do is give him a better form to express his needs, whether it's the use of a word or the use of some other kind of behavior. And when I really get to know him, I'll be able to work with the staff in helping suggest alternative behaviors instead of swearing or throwing things or kicking or whatever behavior he's learned to protest with.
Okay, Ricky, say it again.
That truck.
In a truck?
Yeah.
See, I got it.
Yeah, that one.
Remember, quiet voices.
Airplane. Typically, a general ed teacher would learn some techniques. Any additional people working with him will figure out what role they play. And we divide up the task so that it's not overwhelming for anyone to do. So if the teaching assistant understands that here's a method of intervening when he starts to do a maladaptive behavior, that's one thing. If the teacher understands that under certain conditions Ricky is likely to show the behavior, then we help her figure out ways out of that. When, for instance, she has to do a lengthy verbal explanation to the other kids on how to do something, and Ricky has nothing he can do at that particular time other than wait, then we're likely to see a lot of behavior protests. So we give her some strategies on how to manage that particular situation. It's pretty comprehensive to change children's behavior. And so you only make attempts to change behavior when it's severe enough that it warrants the attention in this focused way. Otherwise, we use the same techniques as we do with all children. We say, stop doing that behavior, start doing this one. But when you have severe behavior in developmentally disabled populations, that will not eliminate the behavior and actually can sometimes make it worse. You have to look at the environment, and you have to look at, is there an alternative way for him to meet the same function that behavior is getting him.
Just this line. Right down here. Right here. There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
And now we're going to start on this one.
Right here.
Right here.
Ricky, we need to concentrate here.
Now?
Oh, this.
Okay. Okay. Tell me what else makes you happy. Things that...
My guess is that Ricky has made tremendous progress as a result of this experience of being in general education environments, and my job is to just help make sure that he's not developing maladaptive behaviors that will increase in severity because they're serving such an important function for him. He does not currently have what we would call very severe behavior, aggression, and as a form of protest. So we want to make sure he doesn't go down that tunnel, that people are reading his behavior well.
Right there. Okay, get a Kleenex.
Two.
2's okay.
1.
Okay, take it back. Got it? Put one in his desk, just in case he needs it. Okay, there you go.
Sometimes Ricky hits people. What do you do when Ricky hits people?
Tell him to stop it, and sometimes he goes in time out. He keeps on doing it.
Oh, and then he has to go rest a little bit in timeout.
But sometimes, when the teacher's not there for him at lunchtime, he always takes care of me.
Why do you do that?
Because on the lunchtime, help us do things that he has to do. Sometimes he serve Ricky, and I just come and take care of Ricky.
You do, huh? And how do you...
And he helps him with this reading.
You know, he seems really happy in this class. You think he is? Yeah? What's fun to do with Ricky?
He's dodgeball.
Is he good at dodgeball?
But I like him.
He got you too?
I knew Ricky and tag.
Since second grade? Wow.
Sometimes we play tag with him.
What if somebody was mean to Ricky? What would you do?
I'll tell them don't do that because
he's your friend. All right. That sounds like a good idea.
One observation I have made in the classroom is when he is required to sit for about a 15-minute period of time, he, in turn, will look at one of the students and say something, F you. And what they were doing is saying, Ricky, don't, the same thing, starting up the conversation, and then they would come tell me. So what we're doing now is I've told them, when Ricky says a bad word, I said, don't say anything. Just keep your focus on me. And if you want, at the end of the day, come and tell me how many bad words Ricky said, but don't give him that immediate attention, because I had noticed that as well. He seems to be using that to start conversation. He's bored. He's been sitting too long. We're requiring a lot out of him sometimes that is difficult for him. So he does use those words, and they have come up more lately.
And I think that there probably is a cycle to his behaviors too, because children with developmental disabilities will often go through cycles of behavior we don't like. And sometimes, I think Maria's right, if he's getting sick or if he's coming down with something, that's the setting event for a variety of behavior ways of telling us what's going on, because he doesn't really have the language skills to talk very much about how he feels or what's going on around him. And when he's tired or sick, we should see whatever his current form of difficult behavior is, we should see more of it. So I would guess we'll see more swear words when he's not feeling well. I think that's a really good observation. And I do think that he uses this to start a circle of communication. So that tells us that one of the functions of the swear words for him is social interaction.
I'm making patterns. Car? No. If you throw these away, it's not going to work. Here, these are good to play with because they're good and they're just cool. What are you going to pick?
I think he is striving so hard to follow the rules. It's amazing. He tolerates lengthy waits for a turn. He tolerates a lot of things. In looking at your work with him in speech language, he's really starting to internalize this idea of turn taking. And I think that as this skill develops, we're going to see some of the behaviors that are not good for him dropping away. So the kicking to get attention, or the kicking when he's angry, I think is dropping away, but we still have some behaviors left, the swear words that are kind of cycling. And what we know about kids with developmental disabilities is that sometimes they get stuck, sort of a sticky thinking. And I think that happens to Ricky. He gets on a loop and he just says the same thing over and over. He wants to ask the same question over and over.
Look at me. You're not concentrating today, friend. Okay? You want your chocolate milk, right? Yeah. You have to do a good job. Ready? Yeah. Is Ricky ready?
Yeah, ready. 5.
Look at it.
5.
No, take it. Trace it. Number 3. Say number 3.
2.
Number 3.
2.
Number 3.
2.
Number 3.
3.
Say it again. What number is this?
Number 3.
What number is this? What number is this?
He's trying to figure out the world, and he's working at it with all of the persistence of a child who's happy and well-adjusted and feels comfortable in his environment. And one of the things I notice about him is he feels comfortable with the kids. And he's very happy with all of the staff members. Very open guy.
Okay, how did you feel different? How did you feel different? It's right here. Okay, so the class, turn around. Ricky, you want to tell them? Turn around. There you go.
Whoa.
When you say bad words, you feel different?
Ricky.
Come on, friend.
Okay, now you can one more.
Ricky, cute.
Seeks social interaction, but has some limited abilities to initiate those social interactions. So when I look at the swear words, if I look at it from, okay, how would we want to eliminate those words? Or how would we want to change those words? We should think of the swear words maybe as sort of an evolution from kicking, if you know what I mean. In that sometimes he seems to be using these swear words to get people's attention. And he wants the attention, I think, to start a social interaction. In looking at the times today, when he used it, he seemed to use it as a way of getting someone to say something back. So he's opening a circle of communication. So down the floor, when he's playing, he says a few words. The other kids say, no bad words. He says, did I use a bad word? They say, you used a bad word. He says, no bad words. They say, I'm making a truck or whatever out of the blocks. And so he has opened a whole series of interactions.
I believe his attitude and his behavior has improved greatly, whereas he used to have to control him all the time, but now he can walk beside you when you go places. He doesn't run off. He tries to keep his hands away from other things as he goes by. But he's made tremendous progress lately.
I really think that it takes a lot of work and effort and being able to work together, because that's the only way that we believe that it will work.
Best practices in behavior management. Set up a structured program for supporting positive behavior. Establish a daily schedule with students that alternate between quiet activities and those that involve discussion and movement. Establish class rules that emphasize respect and dignity. Review rules frequently with examples. Get in proximity of the student. Cue the student. Redirect the student back into the task. Acknowledge and praise positive behavior. Collaborate with colleagues for identifying successful strategies. Involve the family. Work on appropriate verbal and physical social skills. And instruct students on how to react to other students' disruptive behavior. A word processor is the most common and effective tool that can aid students with physical and learning disabilities.
By being introduced to the power of word processing, Lindsay, who has use of only one hand, has learned how to express her thoughts. And in her case, she was able to type a very powerful essay about her sense of isolation in high school and her lack of friends in an editorial for the school newspaper, which was then published in the Los Angeles Times. And as a result of that publication, she's found that more kids pay attention to her and more of her teachers are paying attention to her as well. So she's found some real rewards by using the power of the computer to express her thoughts and feelings. So Lindsay, you're a high school student and I know you really like to write.
Yes.
Can you show me some of the things that you do with the computer that makes it easier for you to write?
First of all, I can increase the size to perhaps about this size.
Has the computer made it easier for you to write? What does it do?
It saves me time. I don't have to, do drafts. I can only do it once. And a long time ago when I didn't have a computer, it was very hard because it took me a long time to do my homework, and now I can just go back to it and write.
So you feel like you can be successful? Technology offers a number of means for helping kids who are having difficulty mastering basic reading skills. One of the tools is a simple word processing with speech synthesis, in which the computer can type on the screen the words that the student is typing in and highlight them. The student can also use different colors, which may make it easier for some students with dyslexia to actually recognize the differences between letters. Also, in changing the size of the print. Sometimes students with visual discrimination difficulties can increase their reading skills, for example, by just being in control of the size of the print that they're reading.
Multimedia helps students with learning disabilities participate in reading and writing activities.
Multimedia really allows every student to draw on the skills that they have and either compensate for or bypass the weaknesses that they have. So a student can take what they're good at and express what they've learned in that way without being limited to only one form of expressing their learning.
Can I do my family?
I don't. We can do that later. Let's just do your dad since you've got it going, okay? Now, what are you going to do? Or just hit enter. Enter works. Okay, now, that's right. Good remembering. Look at, good. Will you read to me what you've written for your dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Curly hair, work, KFC, and Taco Bell.
Now hit this, and okay. I'll come to you next. The students are creating their own program about themselves, and they're choosing words that are meaningful to them. And if they can say the word, often they'll recall them to be able to read them. And so Kyle is now writing all about himself, and he's able to read what he wrote about himself. When we're reading at a 5th grade level and he's reading at a 1st grade level, he can't read the books, and he often has difficulty processing the information presented in the books as well. So when he's writing about himself, he's already processed that information. And when he's writing about himself, he's using his words, and he can recall them when he's reading them out loud to someone else to present his multimedia project. Kyle is a beginning reader. He reads probably at a 1st grade level. When we're reading in the classroom, he has difficulty reading with the class, even following the books and comprehending the information. So in this sort of setting, Kyle is as successful as everyone else. He can read, he can write, and he can produce and feel good about himself.
When accommodating students of varying abilities, teachers can utilize technology-based resources for reading and writing. Books on tape, books on CD-ROM, word processing, electronic encyclopedias, and Internet. Adaptive keyboard is a simple modification of a computer that allows students with physical disabilities to participate in the writing assignments in the regular classroom.
The adaptive keyboard not only provides a way for students with physical disabilities to have access to the computer, it provides a way for a teacher to design very individualized lessons or lessons that are designed around a particular aspect of the curriculum to use. So the adaptive keyboard provides a scaffold or a structure for teachers to use to print out their own overlays that match their curriculum and also match the learning needs of the students they work with.
What this is, Norma Jean, is a word prediction program that allows you to make some word choices as you enter one letter. And then it pops up into the screen on the top after she hits the space bar or the period. So Allison, would you like to show Norma Jean how you can write your name?
My.
Well, whoa, you got your whole name in there. Very good.
My name is Allison Green.
This is an example of an adaptive keyboard with an overlay that a teacher has designed. This could be either a composition activity or a communication activity. When I press one of the keys, which says I want, you can see that on the screen the words are typed and they're also read aloud. They're highlighted as they're pronounced, so a student who's developing reading skills also gets cues about reading as well as having their ideas expressed. And then I can list the various things that I want.
Hamburger, milk, apple, cookies.
And by pressing a key over here, it will read all of the things that I've written.
I want hamburger, milk, apple, cookies.
And then I can press the period, and I also have the option on the overlay of printing it, having it read aloud, or deleting some of the things that I've written. This particular tool is useful not only for students who have physical disabilities and can't use the regular keyboard, but it also structures the task for the student who has learning disabilities or the student who comes from English as a second language or perhaps a very young child. Using the pictures associated with the words gives the student visual cues, and they can begin to associate the word and the picture. It also helps them organize their thinking. I want is the beginning of the sentence, and these are the items that the student might choose.
Touchscreen interaction is another modification for students who cannot use a regular keyboard.
The touchscreen is a device that fits over the regular monitor and enables a student who has difficulty, a physical limitation, so that the regular keyboard is not appropriate. They can make their selections by touching the screen.
Okay, Allison, we're going to play this game and write a little story. And I know that you have a hard time using the regular keyboard because your fingers have a hard time getting in these little spaces. So we put a touch window on so that all you have to do is touch the thing that you want to do. And it's a lot easier physically for you to do that. Let's choose the story you want to write today. A day at play.
His friend,
Oh.
Fish. All day.
You're not going to put a dog in the water? No.
With his friend, the fish all day.
So we wrote a whole story just by touching.
In this segment, you'll see Melody, a special educator, showing Eric, a general ed teacher, how a student with physical disabilities in his class can participate in writing lessons.
Melody is demonstrating how a scanning array works. For students who have to use a switch to input every single keystroke, the computer scans through groups of letters and then through single letters, and by pressing the space bar or hitting the switch, that particular selection is made.
Okay, what we have, Eric, here is our two programs. One is what we call a talking word processor, which means that if I press a letter and type in two letters to make a word, hit the space bar, it can speak the words or sentences. You can actually set it up to speak words, letters, words, or sentences.
And the next program that we have is a device called Connex that has a scanning array. It's for someone who cannot use the keyboard. They have to use a switch. This is a switch. So would you like to try it? When it comes to the row that I want, I hit the switch, and then the groups within that row, and then the letter, and then it puts it down there.
A second tool for the technology toolkit is a piece of word prediction software, and I'll show you how that works. The software works together with whatever the regular word processing software is, so you can see two different screens. I'm going to type a sentence that says, I'm having a good day at school, and I will start by just pressing the I key, and then it gives me a selection of words, and it also reads the selections aloud. I see the word that I want at the top, and I press I, and then there's the second word that I want, am. And it doesn't have the word on this selection, so I type the first letter of the next word, and the word isn't that I'm looking for, having, isn't there. I type the second letter, and now I see the word that I want. I click on that selection, and it skips to the next word. I see A, and I want the word good, and I see good, and I want to say day,
also at, now, my son, school.
And I press the period.
I am having a good day at school.
When I press the period, it reads the whole sentence aloud. And then, as you can see on the screen above, it types in the whole sentence in my usual word processing program. Then I'm ready to begin my second sentence. There is a dictionary, and the program adjusts to the vocabulary and the words that I use. So the more often I use certain words, the more frequently they're presented to me in the list of choices. In this way, a student who struggles with fine motor and who has as much difficulty with keyboarding as handwriting has a chance to as quickly get through a composition exercise as any other student. And this works for students with physical disabilities as well as for students with learning disabilities.
If I was and had the having a really good day at school. I am having a good day at school.
Technology can help students with learning disabilities organize their thoughts.
A third tool that I recommend to classroom teachers is a mind mapping tool. This particular tool is called Inspiration, and I'll show you how it works. Let's say we're doing a lesson in response to going on a field trip, and students have to write about what they did. In the center, I will type our trip to the apple farm. And one of the things we will talk about is what we saw. Another thing we'll talk about is what we ate. And we might have an item about what we did. Now this is kind of interesting. This is a right brain non-linear sequential sort of tool, but under the view menu we can turn it into a left brain linear sequential tool. And students can add notes, they can go back and forth between the diagram and the linear outline. If we want to talk about what we ate, which is always a favorite subject for students, I can go into rapid fire mode and we can brainstorm all the items, what we ate. We ate cookies. We ate soda. We ate apples. We ate, and you can see that the items automatically line themselves up. And in this way, if we go again back to our outline view, students can watch their composition literally develop before their very eyes. In addition, this particular piece of software has a spell checker so that students don't have to worry about spelling. All they need to worry about is getting their ideas. For students with learning problems, one of the main issues is organizing their thoughts, putting things that seemingly don't have any relationship to each other, just miscellaneous facts, have an order, a structure, and it makes sense. They can also edit without having to do a whole new page, which they would have to do with pencil and paper. And a student who has visual difficulties can make the type as large as they want. They can also print it out. They can turn it in just like everybody else.
Adapting toys with technology can help young children learn through play.
When I think about technology, I really like the analogy of electronic curb cuts. We all are familiar with curb cuts that make it possible not only for people in wheelchairs, but people on bicycles, people with shopping carts to have easier access to the roadways. When I think about technology and electronic curb cuts, that is, the tools that are developed for people with disabilities of one kind or another, these same tools open up possibilities for very young children to express their thoughts, to have access to very powerful computing tools, as well as for students who have learning disabilities, students who don't have learning disabilities. So again, the power of technology to be an equalizing force, creating means of expression and learning without any floor and without any ceiling across all populations of kids and people.
Okay, Lindsay, we're going to get ready to go into a preschool where we have children who don't have disabilities and other little ones that do. And some of the children that can't use their hands, they have cerebral palsy. And so usually when we bring toys in, the kids can hit the little switches and make the animals or the toys work. But these kids aren't able to do that. So we have a whole bunch of other kinds of switches. This is called a leaf switch. And you could put it like this. You want to do it with your chin. So if I hold this, like if you drove up in your wheelchair, and then let go. So it takes very little pressure to do that one. This could also be used with a child's foot or their elbow or anything. And then if you let go. And so a lot of kids, and what's fun is when little children, they don't care if they have a disability or not, because all kids love hitting this switch. Okay, so what we're teaching kids here is cause and effect. When they hit a switch, something happens. It's like hitting the keyboard and something happens on the screen. So very often we start this with very little children with physical disabilities so that they know that they're controlling something in the world.
Now let's look at a communication tool that allows Oscar to be included in the general classroom.
The Dynavox is an augmentative communication device that enables Oscar to scan letters of the alphabet or particular words or phrases that he wants to use to express himself. And then he can make selections by using a switch that is special for him, and then the word processor, the speech synthesizer, expresses those thoughts. It's a communication tool. His particular switch is a sip and puff switch, so that when he takes in a breath, it is the same as perhaps hitting the space bar or pressing the return key, and when he puffs, it is another selection device to make a particular selection. And the flexibility of the different kinds of switches. So even a student with movement of an eyebrow or a head movement or a knee twitch can fully operate a computer by those same kinds of movements.
Oscar, we're going to be working on just using your Dynavox again today and getting to the words as quickly as we can, and also having you type in the words. Have you been practicing at home? Are you going to type it in for me? Beautiful. A lot faster than last week. That's great. That's going to make a huge difference, okay? So now let's just go ahead and get into our lesson. And we're working with, I'm going to put it in front. And then I'm going to move it for you to type in what you need, okay? Let's do this one and have you practice sleep. Would you sleep soundly, sleep powerfully, or sleep messily? Which would you sleep? And then you're going to type it in. Type in the correct answer. Okay, so would you sleep soundly, powerfully, or messily? It's not moving. Oh, there we go. He normally was signaling with his eyebrows on yes and no questions. Now we're getting him used to just typing in with a computer. And so that's been our main focus in therapy right now.
It's his voice. It has different voices, and he even chose his own voice. There you go.
Hello, my name is Oscar.
They know Oscar. I mean, they treat him just like, they're the kids. And that's where this thing comes in handy, because not only will it be good, for me or the teachers, whatever, but just his friends alone too. Like at lunchtime, he takes it out and it helps him work out and communicate with his friends. But they all know Oscar, and they treat him just equal, the same.
I am really excited about doing this video.
When choosing appropriate technology, ask yourself if the technology accomplishes the following: augments abilities, bypasses disabilities, compensates for disabilities, promotes interaction, promotes problem solving, provides a focus for students with attention problems, adjusts to the level of the student, encourages academic and social risk-taking, and provides patient, repetition, and corrective feedback.
Right now in the inclusion movement, the parents are the driving force. Parents have to understand what their rights are. They have to understand the laws. They also have to be willing to work collaboratively with school districts. This is new in California. This is not, something that has been going on. We've got districts that are still struggling with trying to put their special day classes on integrated sites, let alone trying to have a child go into a general education classroom. So parents have to have that kind of understanding that they are at the cutting edge, the forerunners, and be willing to work real collaboratively with their school district and still have the push to make sure that things are done right. Parents are extremely important as far as support. They need to be able to support the teachers. They need to be able to say to the teachers, it's okay, you don't have to have my kid at grade level. There's no way that my kid's going to be at grade level. But that's okay. To give them what we call kind of like dispensation, okay, you can let them be, and they can, there's so much more that our kids benefit from by being in the general education environment that teachers need to have that opportunity to see that enrichment happen for our kids. So parents are extremely important, and it's a struggle. I joke about how I'm doing 10th grade again and getting better grades this time than when I was really in 10th grade. We spend hours on homework. This was just, a very simple little exercise, but she spends probably 3 hours a night on homework. And that means I spend 3 hours a night on homework because she needs that level of support at times. When she's reading, using her books on tape, I don't even have to be in the room. She does it. But when it comes time to do the writing that goes along with it, then I have to be there to help her discuss it. And sometimes fatigue will set in and I'll have to do the writing and then she has to type it on the computer type of thing. But parents have to be there to support the child. They have to be there to support the teachers. They have to work collaboratively with their school districts. And that's what makes inclusion work.
There's no difference when they are looking at their parent involvement and seeing that the parent is, in a sense, role-playing the sense to them that education is important no matter who you are or where you are on that ladder of learning. It's very important. And to have a parent back that up in any way possible is always something that's very special to the child.
Parents who take a very active role in their students' learning can be the best support for teachers.
To know what the child's strengths and weaknesses are, and then to help the teacher help the child. And it's so critical. It's not so much a prejudice. It's just sometimes they don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to do it with that many children, and they get overwhelmed. And that is what I've seen. They get overwhelmed. Yeah, I want to help your child, but I don't know how to, and even if I know how to do it, I don't know that I have the time. So a lot of the burden's on the parent, and more importantly, for instance, Lindsay's at an age where she has to find a way to ask for what she needs, to say where she's stuck, and maybe she doesn't have the answer, but to let us know so that an answer can be found. And there's so many resources out there, but it takes attention at work and energy and time. But I think that ultimately, it's as much as the school district would like to say there's a lot of it's on the family to take care of their children.
I think parent involvement in their child's education and within the classroom is very important. The parent needs to know what's happening and be concerned what the child is learning. I think a lot of times the regular classroom teacher is put off and is apprehensive about parent involvement because that means there's going to be an adult in that classroom watching them. And that is very hard for some teachers. But you have to come to terms with that and realize that that parent is there to help you facilitate what needs to be done in that classroom. And you have to go into the room with that mentality that they are there to help assist you in what you want them to do. And when there are parents to be able to alleviate some of the extra work that goes on in a classroom, it works out to be a lot better in the long run. You have to get used to it, though. You have to realize that one teacher in a classroom can't always do everything. And if you can bring other people in to support the other types of things that need to happen in the classroom, I think that in the long run, they will understand that it's a lot better.
Erica and I had a difficult birth experience, and she started therapy because she was considered high risk. She was at age 3 diagnosed with cerebral palsy finally, athetoid cerebral palsy. She has become very mobile compared to where she started, and she's very proud of it. And at age 4, when we were in special education at a segregated school, I discovered that she could spell. And being nonverbal, she was emerging. So she could spell and she could group numbers. And I was told that she was not responding to anything and that she was going to be moved to a lower functioning class. So that's when Mom sort of went out and enrolled her in a regular preschool, and I aided her there. I stayed with her. And then we sort of did half and half until I realized that the regular preschool, as opposed to the special ed preschool, did the same thing. It's just that she was in a class with all children with issues, disabilities, or just issues, and the other one, she was being the regular education class, she was able to observe regular kids behaving and doing regular things. So that was fabulous. It was fabulous that I could be there too. And so she has been fully included, meaning in a regular classroom with an aide ever since. She's in 3rd grade now, and she's doing wonderful things. She's using an Alpha Talker, still the letterboard, and she has a computer set up at school. and we are using voice output with the computer, IntelliKeys, IntelliTalk, and she's really emerging. She's doing great things. It's turned out that she does have she's within normal limits, quote, quote, within normal limits of cognitive ability. Math is her favorite subject. We would never have known that. She's doing great things.
One of the most effective ways teachers can get the family involved in the student's learning is by explaining homework assignments to parents or siblings.
In the inclusion program, and for me to participate with James, it's very important. I could follow along on his subjects. I know what homework he has, where he stands with a certain project, whether it's just him alone or in a group. We had a couple of projects where we had the other children over here, and I made sure that it was at my home so I could tell what's going on, make sure that he actually got involved in the project and helped. Also, the inclusion teachers, at the end of the day, they check his homework, they modify his homework, and at the end of the day, I am practically every day right there, and I know exactly what's going on, so in the evening I could help him. Really important for a parent that helping their children is to find out how they're teaching them in school. So at home, you could do the same thing. One thing that really made me feel good, and I know it made him feel good because I told him about it, was when he entered the 6th grade this year. No, it was when he entered the 5th grade. The first couple of days, I was in the classroom right away, and I had a group of kids come in during recess. And they said, "Are you James' mother?" And I said, "Yes, I'm James' mother." And one girl said, "Well, there doesn't seem anything to be wrong with him. He's from that room over there," pointing to special ed. And I said, "Well, there's nothing wrong with him. He just needs extra help." And one of the girls said, "God, he has the nicest looking hair." So that made me feel really good. And off they went. That he wasn't different anymore.
Inclusion is working wonderful. We've never had a problem with other children. What we run into a lot is an attitude from adults. No, she has special needs. She needs to be taught differently. She needs to be viewed as a person, and she needs to be respected for who she is. And this is the community she's going to live in when she's older, and she needs to experience it now.
We as parents could be great advocates and agitators and whatever it took, but if we didn't build that bridge and that friendship and respect with professionals and let them know we were there for them, those teachers in the classroom, it wasn't going to happen. And so it's a very difficult road to go to get what you need for your child, but also somehow help change that system so that teachers feel supported.
I think for the vast majority of children, I don't know that I would want to say every child, but for the overwhelming vast majority of children, the progress that they can make in a general education setting is unbelievable. And in my 20-some years of working with kids that I would have seen in more self-contained classrooms that I now see in general ed environments, I really want that option for every child. And legally, that is a right of all children.
A heterogeneous classroom can benefit all, not just, the one student or two students, but that everybody has something to contribute and something to receive. And it's a great feeling. It's a tremendous feeling as the teacher to be able to see that.
We all learn from each other, regardless of whether we have a disability or not. It's just the way it is. So it's a real life situation.
I had a meeting with your teacher today, remember? Yeah. She suggested that I audio tape one of the chapters from your novel. Yeah, so that you can listen to me reading. home. Yeah, we're going to try that out. Did you bring your book home today?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll start it when we get home.